Good evening and welcome to the Weekly Debate. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Lindy Naughton. Our aim with this programme, produced by Health Freedom Ireland in conjunction with the Irish Inquiry, is to promote debate on issues relating to health in Ireland. We'd like to make it clear that we have no agenda beyond trying to seek to examine all aspects of an agenda or of the subject so that you, the public, can make up your own minds about how to live your lives and manage your health. As you may know, much of the material you see on this programme is not available through mainstream channels. So if you wish to support what we do and to spread the word, please press the share button on your computers now or wherever you're looking at this. Our general theme tonight is mental health. Are we still experiencing weird totalitarian rollouts of medical apartheid and cultish mass brainwashing around the globe? Oh yeah. Are our politicians still acting like a confederacy of dunces? Yep. We're all struggling to stay sane in a world gone mad, and that indeed is our broad theme for tonight. While our top priority is those who are not only struggling with their mental health, but finding it extremely difficult to get help, we must not forget that virtually everyone is having a hard time at the moment. That includes ordinary folk who honestly believe that lockdowns, face masks, and the experimental injection are what will get us out of this mess. Then there are the nurses and doctors on the front line faced with staff shortages and fewer beds on the roads coming into the winter season, and also face an increase of patients with cancers, strokes, heart disease, and other very serious illnesses that have been neglected for the past year. Special needs assistance in schools where the students remain masked. If I try to teach a class even unmasked, you'll know how tough that must be. There are the restaurant and cafe owners and small business people who can't get staff because the people they used to employ are now earning more on the PUP. There are the guards who, heaven forfend, have better things to be doing with their time than trying to administer the increasingly confusing list of COVID regulations. How do we get out of this? One thing for sure, it's going to take some time. Joining us tonight are Josephine Keohane, a psychotherapist from Cork, Peter O'Donoghue, who's organising regular group meetings also in the Cork area, but we believe in Drogheda as well, and Barry Murray from Kerry, who will give us the latest on park runs and join in the general discussion. We'll start with you, Josephine. You've been highlighting mental health problems and the difficulties faced by children wearing masks, so maybe you could expand on that.
I suppose, where I come from personally would be from, I suppose, as a grandmother, but also, and most importantly, I suppose, as a professional from a psychotherapy point of view. And I suppose I've watched my own grandchildren suffer through having to wear masks. One of them in particular, that she just went and locked herself in a bathroom and cried when she was expected to wear a mask in a certain situation. I suppose really what we're looking at here are children that, the normal thing for them is to be able to go around the street, go to school, go and have fun with their friends, breathe the fresh air like we all did. And now they're being told that, no, they can't do that, it's dangerous. But the problem behind all of that as well, it's not just the breathing and breathing through a mask that's dangerous for them, but there's also the mental health issue of first kick-off. You've got children who may already have been traumatized and are now being made to put a mask on and sit in class all day long. If you've got a child who's been traumatized and basically they've been told, you don't speak, you don't communicate what has happened, then the mask over the face is reiterating this without any words. And the fact that they can't see a teacher's expression, you've got a small child in classroom, okay, maybe the little ones aren't wearing masks right now. We're talking about maybe kids gone into, in particular, the first years going in because they've gone from not having to wear them to now having to wear them full-time in class. And you're talking about a child who already is stressed out, possibly because of the change to new school. And now they're sitting there unable to express this. They don't know what the teacher's expression is because they can't see it. And mirroring to our children, how to regulate. So if you've got a child who's stressed and they can see that in the person who's in charge, the adult who's supposed to be taking care of them, is able to show that it's all okay, but you don't just do it with words, you do it with your facial expression. Now they can't see that anymore. So you can't tell if you've got a child who's terrified behind this mask. You don't know how a child is feeling. And you've also got the children that are may already be traumatized from previous experiences, and they're already, I suppose what I would say, for want of a better word, but they're already after being hurt. And now we're hurting them again. And I don't believe that as adults we have a right to do that. I suppose I got into my work, Lindy, first day in the hope that I was going to be helping people, and that was my priority. And now I'm looking at very few mental health practitioners, if any, to come forward and actually stand up and say, this isn't right. You've got children who are listening to their parents who are frightened. Parents are frightened. They've been listening for a very long time now to mainstream media that is just filling them all day with fear-mongering, I would believe, and anxiety. And if a parent is frightened, then the chances are the child is frightened. Now, what adult in their life is actually going to be able to produce stability and grounding if they walk out of a home that's scared? And you can't blame people for that. It's what they're being fed. And then they go to school, and now the teacher can't show that she's going to be there and grounded for them because she's got a mask on her face. The connection for children is broken,
Can I ask you just a really stupid question? What exactly does a psychotherapist do?
Okay, so psychotherapy is basically, it's similar to counselling, but it goes a bit deeper, Lindy. So you go deeper with the person maybe than counselling would have once upon a time. I don't believe that's the case now, because I think across the board the training is all the one now. That would have been the difference before. So when we did our training, it was counselling and psychotherapy. I believe now it's more or less nearly all the same.
So it doesn't involve medication of any type or anything like that?
Not at all. No,
Yeah.
no, not at all.
It sounds, it just dawned on me when you were talking there. I thought, I don't actually know what psychotherapy means. So are you getting people coming to you who are needing therapy?
Well, at the moment, I'm not practicing, Lindy, through health issues of my own. So I took time out, but I would have had contact from clients that, you mentioned there a while ago, in different professions that are now struggling. And we'll say prior to COVID had been doing quite well. I suppose I'm seeing that there is a huge rise, and it's across the board. It's not just, we'll say, people might think of lockdowns and they think of, oh, well, the person who's at home all day long and they can't get out. Yes, of course, they're there. But then, just like you said, there's the professionals, the nurses, the doctors, the teachers, the SNA staff, professionals, right through all trades, you name it. They're all suffering right now. Just like you said, restaurant owners. There was a very, very sad situation that I listened to on radio, or in the very early days, where a man came on crying because he had already gone into insolvency with his home in the last downturn with the economy. And you can only go into insolvency once in a lifetime. I don't know if people are aware of that.
Oh.
So it meant that if he now was losing his job, there was nothing he could do to save his home. Nothing. And this man was crying. And the person on the radio listened to his story, but then left him go in that state. And this is the thing that's annoying me, is that the forgotten people. It's the forgotten people,
Well, I just think the world has gone completely mad. I mean, we are designed to be social animals. I mean, the impulse, what I find really irritating about this, of many things, is that there was an approach to pandemics. I'm not saying this was a pandemic, because I don't think it was, but that there was a World Health Organization approach. There was a document there. At no point did it say that people should be locked up. It said normal life should continue for the physical and mental health of the world. And then they threw it up in the air. I mean, it's quite extraordinary.
But they threw so much up in the air, Lindy, didn't they? I mean,
yeah.
On one day we were listening to, don't wear masks because if they're not safe and you shouldn't wear them. And the next day everyone was being told we should all wear masks and not take them off. And in fact, maybe we should wear two. And, so yeah, you're right. It was a case of that, they just seem to change on, what way is the wind blowing, and we'll change all our decisions again. So nobody, and even in that, I think it causes an instability for people, and that is very, very detrimental to people's mental health.
Well, I think I was reading a document earlier today, which I didn't agree with a lot of it, but the man was making the point that the big problem we have, I'm listening to you here. I actually don't bother listening to anything that comes from the government, because I can't make any sense of it anymore. I don't know whether I'm supposed to wear a mask or not, because I won't wear it anyway. And I think what the point this chap was making was that if you don't give people a plan, if you don't say, look, we'll be out of this in 3 weeks, and it happens, that you do create exactly what you're saying. It creates horrible mental problems. We need to have something definite.
And that's the problem. We've been strung out, like, for the last, it started at the 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And here we are 2 years later. and we still don't know what's happening. And you know, at the moment, the talk is that, oh, in October, everything is all going to open up. And, you know, well, you know, I think anyone that believes that at this stage, you know.
Have you actually read that? I did read that one. We won't be open on the 22nd. It's complete. I could easily start swearing here, so I'll stop myself. But I read it and I thought they still have the right to make us do all sorts of things, even after the 22nd of October. All of our guests tonight are not from the Dublin area, which is where I'm from. I've noticed a huge amount of compliance in the Dublin area. I'm wondering what kind of compliance. I'll be asking all the guests, by the way, this. What kind of compliance are you seeing in the area you live in?
Well, it's interesting you asked me, Lindy, because so I'm from Cork originally, but right now I'm living in Sweden.
Oh, right.
And
right.
And it's very interesting that I'm speaking to you tonight about this, because my husband was just at home for the weekend. He just came back yesterday, and over here there's no mask wearing unless you really want to, and those who do are very, very few, I can tell you now. We can walk into any pub you want to go into, any restaurant you want to go to. In fact, there's some lovely restaurants here that I can actually take my dog to, and she's quite welcome. And if I went home, I wouldn't be welcome in any of the restaurants or any of the bars. So that was really interesting to me, that my dog can go wherever she likes nearly, and I can't if I go home. So that's the madness. But while my husband was at home, he sent me photographs and said, can you just look at this? Now, he had taken them from far away, of queues outside shops waiting to try and get in, standing with their masks. You know, it was just so sad. It's just so sad at this stage that we're so far down the line. There's a swimming pool just up the road from me here, and I was talking to a man who was taking his kids, and they're all going in swimming, and it's an outdoor pool, and I pass it every day now walking with my dog, and the little kids are coming off the bus from school to go in and do their swimming lessons, and you know, they just can't get it that this isn't happening back in Ireland. You know, I had an interesting chat with the lady here today, and I was telling her that, you know, I could go to the pool here, but I can't go to the pool at home. And she said, so what are they doing? And I said, well, if you go to a hotel, you have to book your hour, but nobody else is in the pool with you then. And she just couldn't get her head around this. Like, and here they did do, they never did a lockdown, but they did do, you know, a restriction on numbers in shops for a little while and things like that. There was never a restriction about masks. The children here don't wear masks. There's quite a lot of schools around the area where I'm staying, and I see them all in the yard playing together, and they're, you know, just as it always was. And I just find that so sad, because I know what it's like for our children at home, you know, and it's definitely not like this.
Where are you in Sweden, just out of curiosity?
I'm in Gävle.
Where's that? South of?
It's about an hour and a half from Stockholm. I think Lindsay, I'm very bad at geography. I have to put my hands up. We're north. We're north.
No, the reason I'm a big fan of the Wallander books, and my sport is orienteering, so Sweden is kind of a spiritual home. How did you end up there?
My husband got a job here. He's doing construction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got out. Did you get out before all the madness started in Ireland?
No, I'm only here the last about 2 months, Linda. He's here about 3 months.
So you really can see the difference.
Oh yeah, it's major.
To be honest, I thought if this goes on for much longer, I have to get out of this country. I'm sure I'm not the only one. And my second country would be France, and it's just as bloody mad there.
This is mad there. But it's interesting, because I spoke to that lady I spoke to today. She was quite unaware of what's going on around the world, really. They think it's the same everywhere. So we've had quite an enlightening conversation. She's Swedish and I don't speak Swedish. So we had a really good conversation, and we intend to meet again. it was really interesting, really, really interesting. And that lady is very much, you know, in the belief as well about, you know, everyone's own choices and no segregation or, you know, discrimination, that we should all just be able to live together as we were doing before the governments got involved and decided to destroy things for people, you know. And they're talking, actually, I don't know if anyone heard it. I didn't catch it completely, but I did hear some noises about money being thrown at mental health. And I'll say being thrown because in my eyes, that's like putting a plaster over a gaping wound. They're the ones that caused the mental health and are causing what's going on right now. And throwing money at it, I'm sorry, this needs to be stopped. Not money thrown at it, it needs to be stopped.
I just want to ask you something before we bring Peter in, and I see Barry has just appeared there. Hello, Barry. Josephine, I just want to ask you, you said, I think you made comments about the professional organisations in psychotherapy, psychiatry, psychiatry. Yeah. So what were you arguing there?
Well, my argument really, Lindy, is that I suppose even in our own training from day one, you know, we were always told that your first, as we would have called it, your housekeeping. So the first thing you do when you've got a client in the door is that you make them aware of the fact that, you know, there's limits to our confidentiality. And one of those limits would be that if there was a danger to the client or somebody else as a result of their actions or somebody else's. So if that was the case, then we would be duty bound to make a report on that. So it's really interesting to me that we have a whole nation who in my eyes are being abused right now and have been for the last 2 years with fear and anxiety. Yeah. And our organisation, my own in particular, that I had, you know, my own words with are the IACP in Ireland, and we've got several, but that's my governing body. And I wondered what they were actually doing. I mean, I did suggest that maybe they should step forward and maybe send somebody to advise the government on the damage that they're doing, seeing as the government are taking advice from NEFIT, that maybe, you know, somebody from mental health needs to be letting them know just what they're doing. And to date, you know, the emails, I've really had very little acknowledgement, or I've had acknowledgement and told that the board would be in contact, which they, you know, haven't. And I suppose really, you know, what really angers me here, Lindy, sorry, is the fact that I've heard from colleagues, I've heard from people maybe, you know, as we might say, higher up the chain, discussing how there'd be quite a lot of fallout with mental health as a result of this, and that we will be very busy. We will all be very busy as a result. So, you know, my take on that is, hold on a second. So we're willing to sit back and allow a whole nation be destroyed, and then we're going to take money from people? I'm sorry. That doesn't wash with me. I went into this business thinking that we all actually cared. And I'm not trying to bring every psychotherapist or counsellor down here. But what I am saying, though, is that we are duty bound to stand up when we see abuse and neglect. And I don't see too many standing up and calling halt.
It's universal. We bring people.
It is universal.
Peter O'Donoghue is trying to do something at ground level. Peter, you were organising the Monday, what was it, the Monday marches or something, and now you've moved on to organising groups, so I believe. So could you explain what exactly you're doing? Can you hear me, Peter? Unmute yourself there, Peter. We just have a small problem with Peter. Are you there, Peter? He's gone completely static. Peter, can you hear us? What's going on? Barry, are you there? Barry? Are you there, Barry? Barry? What's going on here? You muted.
I'm not. What about now?
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Right, Peter, can we hear you yet? Still?
Yeah, I can hear you. My connection is very poor. But
yes, yeah, you're moving like jerkily. Yeah. So tell us exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm a spokesperson here for a group called Saol and Saoirse, and that literally translates to Life of Freedom. So we've been hosting events here every 2 weeks with the last few months. We started off in Cork, and we've spread our wings now when we're in Care and Killarney, and we're going to be in Drogheda here on the 19th of September. So I suppose our official statement is Saol and Saoirse is a community of voluntary professionals and artists who believe in freedom and autonomy for every individual. We believe that everyone is unique and that this uniqueness must be cherished, not suppressed. We believe in a society where everyone is entitled to be their true selves and to live their lives as they wish, with respect and consideration for others. We want everyone to feel socially included and supported in every way possible. So basically, we believe in just living and letting live. And we believe in unity over division and ultimately love over fear. So that's what we're about. So we travel around the country, and we set up shop, and we've many musicians, and they come along and we play music. And so last Sunday night we had 8 musicians, very talented musicians, and we generally have a speaker then as well. So one person will speak for maybe 20 minutes, and there's so we've had Arctic endurance racers, and we've had professional MMA fighters, and we actually had a survivor last week, a terminal cancer survivor last week, talking about her story, and just very unique people, with very unique stories. And we just have a very enjoyable day out. So that's what we do.
So how many people will come to these groups?
I suppose so far we've been getting maybe 200.
Oh, really? Wow.
And yeah, so that's a lot of people actually don't know about this yet, because it's only very recently we've started, So we're hoping to get the word out there, and I suppose what we do as well, it's about mental health and well-being as well. So we have many therapists. So we've therapists, and we've healers that come. We've psychotherapists and hypnotherapists and holistic therapists, and we Reiki and massage therapists and spiritual healers, and they set up their stalls then close to where the music is, and then people, they just go down to these therapists and to these healers, and these professionals then send these people in the right direction if they need help, or just looking for general information. So like, I'll just give you an example there. Last Sunday now we were in Portlaoise, and I was just setting up, and this lady came up to me, and she was just asking what was this about, what were we doing. She was a local, and I just explained to her, and she got very upset, and she said, my husband, he passed away 2 weeks ago, that he committed suicide. And she was so happy that we were doing it, and she was so grateful, So there's an awful lot of people out there at this moment in time in our country, and there's an awful lot of people suffering with their mental health. And I suppose they're not alone, and there is help out there for them, and we just, I suppose, trying to give people hope,
So is this in an open space somewhere, or what's the story?
Yeah, so far we've generally been having them in parks.
Right.
And the weather has been quite good. Yes. So obviously the weather is going to be changing here soon, and we're going to be maybe looking for indoor settings. So, but as long as the weather permits, we'll be continuing having them in the parks.
Yeah, the indoor, I think that could be indoor venues. It might be a problem, do you think?
Well, yeah. So yeah, we'll see what it's all going to be lifted here on the 22nd of October, Lindy. So we'll be good.
Yeah,
we'll believe it when we see it. But
I shouldn't. I was going to make a really bad joke about tattooing, but anyway, I will pass that one. But I'm just wondering whether those of us who remain unclean, who are about 500,000 of us, how exactly we're going to be treated at around that point.
Yeah.
But to find out where you are, how do people find out where you are?
Well, we've set up a Facebook page called Saol na Saoirse.
Right.
That spells SAOLNASAOIRSE. And
Right.
we're in the process of setting up a website as well, www.saolnasaoirse.com. But as of now, you can look us up on Facebook.
And if people wanted you to go and visit their town or whatever, can they get in touch with you that way as well?
Or you can message us there on Facebook. So like we got a message there from the guys in Drogheda there, and they asked us to come. So we're heading there now on the 19th of September, and we'll be at Ramparts Park, and we'll be kicking off there at 2 o'clock. So generally we start at 2 o'clock and we keep going until roughly 6 o'clock in the evening, the afternoon. And everyone's welcome. You know, we don't discriminate. We don't care if you, and we don't even we don't mention COVID, or we don't mention the vaccines, or we don't mention anything like that at these events. It's just about individual freedom. But we don't care if you want to wear a mask, or if you don't want to wear a mask, if you have a vaccine, if you don't have a vaccine, you know, if you want to social distance at the other side of the park, you know, that's your decision in life. And we respect that. And all we ask is that the people, you know, that we all respect each other's decisions in life, and because that's what we need to do ultimately, because there is a huge divide coming in society at the moment. And, you know, this might be even, you know, this divide might be intentional, you know, it's kind of looking that way. So, you know, we can never let us Irish people be divided, you know, and I suppose we're trying to bring people together in this time of division. That's what we're trying to do, and yeah, that's what we're about.
So is it, sorry, an essential piece of information? It's weekends, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a Sunday, and Sundays.
Sunday. There we go. Sundays at around 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock, yes. So every 2 weeks. So our next event now will be the 19th, Sunday the 19th, in Ramparts Park in Drogheda.
And right, we'll bring in Barry Murray. Are you there?
I am. Can you hear me, Lindy? Hi, Lindy. Can you hear me?
Oh, there, I can see you. How are you, Barry?
Hello again.
No, well, as you probably heard, we're discussing ways to deal with the madness, really. And one of the ways both you and I deal with it is by going out the door and running the madness out of ourselves. So the good news is that park runs, I mean, we're talking recreational sport. We know the Croke Park, etc., has been open, but recreational sport, there has been a problem. But the good news, well, park run was back up north, as we know, a few weeks ago. So the good news is it's starting again in some venues on Saturday, so I believe.
Yeah, so it starts the 11th, which is this Saturday, and about 50 out of the, I think it's 95 or 96 park runs in the country, about 50 of them are restarting. The reason why some of them aren't restarting is because they exceed the, you know, 500 outdoor capacity. Like Marley Park, which is the one that's near you, Lindy, I think they might get 600 sometimes or something like that, you know. And the virus is so clever that if there's 600 people, it spreads really fast. But if there's 500, it doesn't, you know.
Well, I know that there's places, well, the nearest to me is actually Irishtown, which is about, I don't know, 80 or 90, well, maybe over 100. So
yeah, they're averaging between 50 and 100. Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, it's a free 5K weekly timed run or walk. Now the key thing that park run really promotes is mental health and well-being. It's actually not for the serious runner. You know, the serious runner can go off and do serious competitive races, but the park run, it actually has, you know, I think it's something like 400,000 members. So after the GAA in Ireland, park run, I think, has the most membership of a sporting body of some sort. So it's got a huge following. As I said, it's all over the country, and it's free, and it's 5K, and you can walk, jog, or run. So you know, it is pretty ironic that something for mental health and well-being has only been reintroduced into society during a public health crisis 18 months after this whole thing started, you know.
And the junior ones are back as well, aren't they?
Yeah, so the junior ones are for under 12s, I think, and they're 3K and they're run every Sunday. And thankfully, they have restarted already. But again, I mean, Ireland, put it this way, most people know that Ireland has been one of the most restricted countries across the board. And I think we're one of the last EU countries, Ireland's one of the last EU countries to restart parkrun.
The parkrun, yeah. Even, here's a really odd question to throw at you. What's the story in Australia?
Yeah, well, you know what the story is in Australia. It's a complete crackdown with a martial law kind of a governance. So they all thought they were, you know, happy living life normally until you know, a couple of cases, and then it's complete you know, a complete shutdown and a complete restriction of all of their liberties and civil rights, you know.
So there's definitely no parkruns there. I've relatives there.
Yeah, no, I met somebody from Australia on so the parkrun that I organise is on a big beach here in Kerry called Inch Beach.
Yeah.
I met an Australian lady who had just returned from Australia, and there was 4 or 5 of us chatting on the beach, and she said, this happened now. She was in New South Wales, I think somewhere near Sydney. If this was happening, if 5 people were chatting on the beach in Australia, in New South Wales, the police would come and ask them to break up.
So Darren, I was saying earlier that I'm curious to know how many people are actually complying, because I was going to say this later, but there's a website called, wait till I just look up what the name of it is. There's a website called, where is it here now? ourchoices.ie/the list.
Yeah.
That's listing restaurants, but whatever, places that aren't prepared to act as the CV police, if you like. And I'm just here where I live in Booterstown, people are horrendously compliant. I mean, it absolutely wrecks my head. And I'm just wondering, I just get the feeling maybe in rural Ireland it isn't quite so bad. What's it like down your way?
So it depends, right? So I actually relate a lot of the compliance in the rural places to the demographic and how much RTE they watch. So you know yourself, in certain rural parts of Ireland, the 6-1 news is never missed, and you know, Pat Kenny is on every day. So if you know that kind of demographic are very compliant. Now, what you also have in these parts of Ireland is you have alternative type people who are willing, who have moved to these places to live a more simple life and to look outside the box. So we've got a big group here that formed way back, like last June, and they're not necessarily Kerry people. There are some Kerry people from Kerry, but there's a lot of other people from around the country, and even some people from England and different other countries. But we formed a community down here that were very awake to what was going on, and that was over 12 months ago. So, and then in the individual kind of restaurants and bars, you have a lot of what I would like to call civil disobedience. You know, it's not that they're fighting the system and trying to be non-compliant. They're just being quite civilly disobedient to it all, which I like, you know. Whereas I know I was in Galway City there just a couple of weeks ago, and you know, it was like you know, it was like Nazi Germany in some of the places. It was like, you know, they're asking for your letter, they're asking for your papers at the door. They've got like security at the door to a bar, restaurant, you know, asking for your passport or your sign of previous infection. you queue outside with the mask on, but then when you go inside and sit down with everybody, you take the mask off, you know. So that kind of level of compliance, that scares me, but that doesn't happen as much down here, simply because you haven't got that city type controlled behavior. You've also got a lot more people who are willing to think outside the box, and you haven't got the masses of people that will drive that sheep-like behavior. You have the masses of people in Dublin and other big, you know, Cork probably, and Galway. It's almost like the more people you have around, the more people will follow what you. They will have this mirror behavior. They'll follow what everyone else is doing, you know. Whereas when there's not that many people, when there's, you know, instead of 50 people trying to get in somewhere, when there's just 5 people trying to get in, those 5 people aren't going to be worried about who's looking at them, you know. So I think a lot of it comes down to simple things like population density, and this business of, you know, who's looking at you. If people feel that they're not being spied on, they'll kind of behave normally. But if they feel like they're being watched, they'll follow the rules. Like, I haven't worn a mask since this whole thing began, and I think you've said this to me before as well, Lindy, I am still, when I go to the supermarket, I'm one of the only people not wearing a mask, you know.
Yeah, same here.
And what I will say is that, and there's probably a lot of people who are watching this and that are very skeptic of everything that's going on, but they will still comply with the mask wearing. And you've said this on various shows, the mask is the number one thing that is driving a lot of this fear, and you call it theater. If we all stop wearing masks tomorrow, the house of cards starts falling down, like, you know.
Well, I don't know if I sent you an article by John Waters. We'll go into that on another show, I think.
Yeah.
He does make the point that, and I know on this show we're preaching to the converted a lot, but he does make the very bracing point that we don't need to be banging on doors and, you know, marching around, that it will be the small gestures that will bring this down. And as you say, mask wearing is the most potent symbol of compliance and everything. And if people would just have the courage, I feel, you know, people say, an older woman hissing at me in Lidl one day, and I just smiled at her. I just said, yeah, I'm not wearing a mask. And I just feel that we're an example. You know, I think that what we're doing is a good thing. So if you're looking at this program, I've said it before, and you're wearing a mask, stop it, please.
Yeah.
Shops, don't wear it. Be brave, because you'll inspire other people to do it. It is nonsense. And that's what John Waters is making. I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but I think he's right. We've got to just be civilly disobedient, as you're saying, and just the small things. Just don't cooperate. Just do the small things. I find I've seen 2 other people, I was saying earlier, in not wearing masks. They're even older than me. It's the young people I find it utterly bizarre. Utterly bizarre. Yeah. And what time are we at? I'm just checking the time. What I want to talk about is what's really worrying me is, even with people who have been skeptical, and so therefore at least you have the certainty that you know what's going on to some degree. And once again, this is something we'll discuss on another program. But what I do find that there's some mornings I wake up and I'm not a very happy camper, and I'm just thinking, how long can I stick this country, or will I, like Josephine, end up as one of your neighbours over in Sweden? That I just wonder what the post-traumatic, will we all suffer from post-traumatic stress syndrome of some type? It's one, maybe I'll ask Josephine that first. Josephine, are you there? You can always.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Lindy?
Yeah, I can. What do you think about how, go on, sorry.
I actually think that there will be quite a lot of PTSD as a result of this. I think the lockdowns, for a start, were a big cause of that, because you've people separated, you know, people can't come together, which is a normal everyday thing that we need. We need one another. We need connection. And that's so very important. And I think, you know, the extent of the damage that's being done right now is not going to be felt until all of this stops, whenever that happens. But I think, you know, Barry, I think, you know, listening to you, Barry, you make so much clear sense, and a lot of things that I didn't say a while ago that I had meant to come in with. But, you know, even the fact that people can't get to the gyms, can't get out and go running and walking to the things that we would, as psychotherapists, have been saying, you know, not everybody can sit and meditate. Not everyone can do that. But other people go to the gym, other people run, other people cycle, and they weren't able to do those things. But nobody was listening. Nobody listened, and nobody stood up and said it. And I thoroughly agree with you know, it's the small gestures. Don't wear the mask. I didn't wear the mask. It's really interesting because I have 4 grandchildren, and one of them, who's a little girl who was upset about wearing masks, she thought I was a hero. You're my hero, Nan. You won't wear a mask. So it's what we can show our children. The adults need to be strong. They need to be brave. And they do not have to do massive shows of, you know, oh, I'm standing against the whole of authority. I'm just not going to do as they're asking me to do. It's against what I believe. Anything that's against what we believe, we should not be doing. It's taking us too many steps away from who we are. And anything that takes you away from who you are yourself is not good for you. It is not good for you. And I speak about this, Lindy, and my daughter, my youngest daughter, has just recovered from COVID, and it actually was COVID. And she was very ill. But we got her to treat it with vitamins and all the things that, you know, we know can work. And it was said to me, oh, like cave people, is it? And I was laughed at, and I said, yes, actually, yeah, you're correct. Just like cave people. And didn't they get it so right? Because you and I are here today as proof of that. So, you know, there's a lot to be said about what the cave people could have taught us on berries and vitamins and all the things that we could have done to take care of ourselves. And we all know how to take care of ourselves. However we decide to do it, our choice should be our own. And I think the damage is going to be untold, Linda. It really is.
Will you be coming back to Ireland anytime soon?
I wish I could bring you all here to me. That's what I would love more than anything.
It's terrible, isn't it? It's, yeah. I mean, that's what we're talking about here, that even those of us, I haven't, like today, I got the news of my sister's dog dying. Now, that may sound very trivial, no. But I used to go over to France regularly. I've done so since I was very small. I speak French. I'm very francophone. And I never, you know, I haven't seen my sister for 2 years. I haven't been to France, my other country, for 2 years. And I'm prepared not to go anywhere until all this nonsense stops, because I am not injecting poison into my body for anybody. And there's some people who have been, you know, arguing against all this stuff, and then you discover they went off and rolled up their sleeves. It's just incomprehensible.
People that we thought were totally, you know, I suppose balanced and grounded have just seemed to have lost it, you know. And can I just say, sorry if I'm hugging here, but you know, in relation to Peter and the Saoil and Saoirse, I did take time to listen to the music that they played over the weekend, last weekend. And I'll just say to anybody out there who can make the time to go to these sessions, this is what you need. This is where the soul food is. It's the music, it's the dancing, it's the coming together that the Irish always did really, really well. You know, we did wakes wonderfully well. We do weddings really well, and we come together really well. And it's in the coming together that we can support one another. It doesn't matter what viewpoint you hold. It's about coming together, supporting one another to get through a very, very difficult time that has been put upon us. And as humans, our thing is to actually come through it. You know, it's not normal for us to just give up the ghost and walk away. It's not. The human need is to actually survive. From the time that we're born to the time that we die, it's to survive. And that's who we are. And we need to come together. And I think, you know, listening to Barry with the park run and Peter with the Saoil and Saoirse, this is where we need to be, guys. Get out there and do it, you know, and support one another. It's very important.
I think the most important thing, Josephine, is that it's not that we're doing it now. It's that Peter and I would like to keep Park Run going, regardless of what level the lockdown is at. That's the most important. It's not, you know, and even if an indoor place is required, I have enough contacts to organise that. So I mean, we need to start doing things now that don't stop. You know, things for mental health and well-being and just living. The key to it all is now we have a large, you know, we are told 10% of the population, but we probably have a lot more people willing to you know, create some form of parallel society, so to speak, where we're not obeying the rules and we're doing what we know is good for us. So that's what needs to start up, because, like, you know, there are rumors of what's going to happen this winter, so we need to not comply with the rules that are thrown at us, and we need to keep everything going that we know is good for us, you know.
I think if people got out there now, Barry, so that they're aware of what's there, they get the feel of it, and they won't want to walk away from it and leave it go. They won't want to be in lockdown. They won't want to take any more of that. And I think people need to get it's like, as I said, it's soul food, and people need to feel it now so that they're prepared.
I'll tell you one, it's a slightly sad story though. You know, as is probably obvious, I've been involved in athletics my whole life, 50 years actually, next month. And in orienteering about 40 years. But I have a friend, I've always had a running group through the Women's Mini Marathon where people just came along for nothing, because I don't believe that if you're in a sport, there should be money involved. And a friend of mine who is a nurse was coming along, and then she disappeared for a few years and then came back, because I don't go anywhere, I'm really boring. I'm there on certain days, that's it. And so she came back over the summer and with her daughter and was running, and she's a nurse. And then she disappeared again. And she came back last Thursday, and I'm hoping she's not watching this, but I do think it's a good story. She was telling me that she's a nurse in a large Dublin hospital, and she's been coming home, closing herself in the door. There's one or two children still there, and refusing to come out again. She just doesn't have the confidence to deal with the world on any level. She's getting her sons to go to the shops, and she finally, one of her friends, another nurse, persuaded her to come back running last Thursday. And I ran around with her, and she was just telling me how traumatized she's been by the whole thing, you know, that her husband's business kind of in big difficulties, and she was, if it's possible to cry and run at the same time, she was doing it. And I was just thinking, that's a really good friend of mine, and I didn't see it coming, to be honest. She's always happy-go-lucky and everything. And she was talking about the trauma being in a hospital where there's all these staff shortages, where one of the big problems is, of course, they've cut back on the beds. But it just really struck me that people have lost their confidence. What you're saying, Josephine, about just living a normal life, people have literally forgotten how to do it. I mean, it's just outrageous. And we're being treated like children. You know, but so that's just my little story to add to it. I'm shocked by how traumatized people are actually by this. And what's been done, I think it's actually evil. It's evil. And as I say, where we get out of it. Sorry.
Could I say something there?
Yes, please do, Peter.
So I don't know if my reception is very bad here, but with our Saoirse events, like we've had, we started off with a few therapists, and generally the therapists, they think that they're the only therapists out there that believe that they think this way, you know, that the therapists feel very alone, and the therapists feel very isolated, and they feel that they cannot, you know, talk about this to their colleagues, their fellow colleagues. And it's quite ironic, really, because in therapy, like, they're meant to be not judgmental, you know, but the therapists themselves feel very judged by their fellow colleagues. So I would just like to thank Josephine for coming on tonight, because I feel it's so important, and it's a huge thing to do, to come out in public and to you know, say, look, I don't agree with what's going on. This is not right, you know, because I can't think of any other therapist that has come out in public and said this, because there's such fear amongst the therapists that with their careers, what will happen to their careers, what I suppose their clients, you know. There's a huge fear amongst the therapists, even the therapists who I know who disagree with everything that's going on. They feel that they can't express it. So by Josephine coming out here this evening and saying these things, like, I'd be hoping that it would maybe encourage other therapists to come out and to talk about this and to start a discussion around this, you know, because it's not right. It's not right what's going on. And also, like, with the last 18 months we've had NEFIT there, and I often wondered, was there any representative from the mental health side of things on that board? And if there was, we never heard that person speaking. You know, was there any consideration whatsoever when all these restrictions were being put in place? Was there any consideration for the negative side effects for mental health in this country? Because the side effects have been astronomical. You know, it's been like, they're huge. You know, and the consequences are going to carry on for years and years and years. So, like, there's huge questions that have to be asked regarding the mental health side of things, you know, and regards the people calling the shots, you know, in the mental health, you know, regards mental health in this country. Where were they? Like, why were they silent? Why did they say nothing? You know, and I just want to thank Josephine for coming out and opening up this discussion. So thank you, Josephine.
What kind of run?
I suppose just
Was there someone on NEFIT, a psychiatrist or anybody?
I don't think
that's
so.
a very interesting question. Because my
I don't think
thought
there
on
is.
that. Sorry, Barry.
No, I remember looking up at all the qualifications in NEFIT. This is months ago, and there wasn't one related to, you know, psychologists or psychiatry.
The interesting thing I find, though, is that a lot of the tactics that are being used are very psychological.
Yeah.
Somebody somewhere is giving direction. That's my personal opinion.
It's have you read Laura Dodsworth's books? That's what she's talking about. Is they're not actually psychotherapists. They're Barry, would you know what they are? It's this nudge theory and all this behavioural scientists.
Behavioural scientists. There's a group in England that have been working with the SAGE. SAGE are the equivalent of NEFIT, and they have a behavioural science team advising them. And I guarantee you, our lot are using a lot of those same strategies. You can see it's universal in all Western worlds what they're doing psychologically, like, you know. Yeah,
well, Ireland just does what England does, let's face it.
Yeah.
Just one final question. I hope we're not going on too long, but I do want to ask this question. Have any of you any views on why the Irish have been so compliant? Because I don't get it.
We're just nation in general, aren't we?
Pardon?
We're very compliant in general.
Well, I haven't.
Well, I haven't either, you know, but generational trauma, like Josephine would know more about that, but I think this goes back to from hundreds of years of being basically suppressed and being told what to do and just going along with it, you know.
I think it's a bit more complicated than that, but I'm interested. I'm interested in this particular topic.
Yeah, it's a combination of things. I am as well, Lindy. I can't understand why people cannot see through this and why people are not literally storming the gates, like, you know. I mean, this is not just an overnight thing. Something has happened to us in the last 20 to 30 years through media and through education and through the church, etc., where they have dumbed down our you know, our responsiveness, our ability to react in some way, you know. We've been dumbed down, and the aggression has been taken out of us. That's happened over like decades, really. And then the Irish were willing to just kind of potter along with things without making a big, you know, it's the classic, if you go for something to eat and you're not happy with what you were served, most people will say nothing and then give out shit about it on the way home in the car, you know. That's just kind of the nature of the Irish. But I've been trying to figure that out. I've been trying to figure out, you know, how all this has gone wrong, or why all this is happening. I mean, you have to dig deep. I would advise people to go to Ivor Cummings' YouTube if they want to find out about why masks don't work and lockdowns don't work, etc. But Lindy, maybe I'll just finish on one thing that might help people see how deep this is and why this is being scripted and orchestrated. There's a YouTube or an Odyssey video today that I shared with you, Lindy, called from a German economist called Ernst Wolf. Okay, I advise anyone who wants to try and figure out why all this is happening in 30 minutes without any kind of dramatic rabbit hole type stuff. He explains very concisely in 30 minutes what the agenda is here from a financial perspective and why everything is happening that we are witnessing. And it requires you to have an understanding of that before you really kind of go, I'm not taking this shit anymore. You know, you have to understand first why it's happening before you know, rebel against it or before you decide to challenge it. You have to understand first why it's happening, and that 30-minute video really does help it, you know.
Yeah, I'd agree. And what I really liked about it and what converted me to the view is that there's hope. There's hope at the end of it. I think on that note, I think we're going to have to wrap it up. Has anybody anything else to say at the moment that before we?
Just on the last point there, Lindy.
Yeah.
Like I was abroad for 10 years, you know. I lived abroad, you know, and I came back to Ireland. And when I came back to Ireland, I noticed that everybody, like, we have an obsession. People talk about other people in this country. We all talk about each other, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to be worried about what everybody else thinks about them, you know. And it really actually bothered me. This is before COVID ever came in. And but then, like, something, I suppose, why I'm so personal, like, with regards to Saoirse, like, our slogan is I am me, I am free. But I suppose something personal that happened to me, my 27-year-old brother, he died last year.
Yeah.
And I just had a realization then, you know. I said the most important thing in life, you know, because I was kind of questioning life, what's it about, and then I realized the most important thing is to enjoy life, obviously, but it's to be yourself, you know. It's to be the person that you were meant to be when you came into this world. And I realized that an awful lot of people in our country of Ireland, we're kind of living some other person's life, you know. Or the neighbour, what does he want us to live like, or what does our parents or friends, or, you know, we're not being our own true selves. And I think if we were more comfortable and if we were able to live the life, our own life, you know, that the vast majority of us, we wouldn't be going along with all these restrictions, you know, because a lot of us are just going along with it because we're worried what other people will think if we don't go along with it. So that would be kind of a theory, you know, I would believe in, you know, and that if we can be more solid in ourselves and believe in ourselves more, that we won't succumb to this propaganda.
Right. Josephine, have you one final word for us as the psychotherapist among us? You're muted. Unmute yourself there, Josephine. Can't hear you. Okay. Right. We're having.
Have I got it? Sorry. I suppose really, you know, I have to agree. We have been conditioned for years to comply, not to stand out and make a disgrace of ourselves, as we would say in Ireland. It's the shame. It's the shame of actually standing up and doing something different to everybody else, and, you know, how we'll disgrace maybe our families and all of that. That really helps to keep people down and keep them in their place. I think as a nation, a lot of us have been lazy about taking personal responsibility, and we've allowed other people to tell us how to do it and where to do it and how to look, how to dress, and we've taken all that on. And I think, you know, hope was mentioned, and I suppose my hope would be that people will find themselves in all of this. It's going to be a huge struggle, and you know, it's going to be places away from, like Barry said, keep away from. He didn't say keep away from it, but it's in the bigger towns where you're going to see such compliance. If you can keep back from that and give yourself a chance to find out who you really are, what you really think yourself, and that's going to take a lot of work in itself. But I think it's out for everybody now, and that's where the hope will lie. The hope will lie in that people will actually look into themselves as opposed to looking out for direction.
Grand. On that note, thank you guys. We've had a really good discussion, and I'm going to bring the tone down completely now. We all know what is the best medicine? Laughter. And one man who's been giving me a good laugh is Wayne, the COVID Marshal. Although he does warn us that a huge guffaw in the wrong place could kill people. Still, with Wayne, the COVID Marshal, on our side, chasing us up stairwells, nudging us on park benches, and peering through our letterboxes, we know we're safe, that awful four-letter word. Look him up on Twitter and join in the fun. It's really funny, honestly. If you need a laugh, Wayne is the man. Right. Don't forget that the Healthy Debate is brought to you by a small bunch of volunteers. Thank you very much to our contributors this week. I think we've had a very useful discussion. And to Stephen, our producer. If you want to help us out financially, there's a donations page on the Irish Inquiry site. So we leave it at that. Thank you again to everyone, and hope we've brought you some hope. Good night.